Here is the field of battle as it is at the end of Allied movement. The Allied 9th turn, 11 p.m. So that means there's one more turn for both sides after this. And let's see, what have they been up to? Well, got all the dice set up, ready for combat and morale checks. Let's see. Down here, the Russians are pressing forward. It's long been established they don't have anything to worry about from the Lancers. The Lancers aren't going to charge them. So they positioned themselves, because they belong to an exhausted division, so they've positioned themselves within 200 yards of the enemy. Excuse me. So that they can take some pot shots here at the Guard Light Infantry, the Guard Voltigeurs. And they're going to have to take a morale test because they're within close range of the enemy. They're going to fire back with 3 dice. Okay, what else? Position skirmishers in front of the enemy to slow them down, but outside of musket range, so they can't fire in this particular stage of the game. But we'll be able to next turn if they move forward. This very lethal sort of a setup here. So you've got stationary, close range. They're going to be blasting away at there. So very good chance that this division, this guard division, could suffer exhaustion this turn right now. Okay, let's see. We've got these chaps here. And because of their position, I'm allowing them to fire at the artillery, but I'm not allowing them to fire at them. Here, artillery shooting at each other, both having to take morale tests. If they take a morale test and fail, they will rout because they're already disordered. Morale test here because of these chaps firing on them at close range. They are going to be able to fire back at the artillery, but not the infantry because the infantry has moved back. There was, of course, infantry here. That unit there, that brigade. Let's see, who is that? That's Freudenreich. They were there. And in Volley and Bayonet, of course, you can move through friends with impunity. So they just did a bit of a facing change and went straight through that lot up to there. Okay? The reason they did that is because they don't want to give the French, if they can, they don't want to give the French the satisfaction of exhausting their division. Is that right? Wait a minute. Can't remember now. Let's see. That's Division 18, isn't it? Where's their commander? Oh no, the division's already exhausted. Right. They don't want to cause a morale collapse. That was it. Right. So they moved off over there. They're still blocking. They're still going to have somebody there to block the way to the line of communication over here. Sorry, I need to pan out a bit here. Zoom out. There we go. Line of communication over there. So he's still blocking their progress. They've retired somewhat because they didn't want to be in close range of the enemy artillery there. So they now have no one to shoot at. They're beyond the range of them, so nothing going on there. Down here, all quiet on the Western Front, so to speak. Nothing happened. Oh, no, sorry, one thing did happen. Very detailed sort of tactical decision was made to pull the artillery back because if the artillery's back there, it basically can't be fired on for the rest of the battle because they could advance to this point here, but then they'd have to stop because of the zone of control, which protrudes out, of course, 100 yards from the corners of units, so they can't just sail through that gap there, for example. So they're there, and that's to get them out of the way because they belong to this division here, and I didn't want that to be a source of losses for this division because that would contribute if the French did a last hurrah and charged. Well, they can't charge, it's nighttime, moved forward, stopped and opened fire on that lot. Of course, the French would get a very punishing return fusillade. But if they could cause enough casualties as well as shooting at the artillery, they might be able to exhaust that division wing and a prayer sort of territory there, but it would have been just possible, so that's why the artillery was pulled back, so that it won't contribute to that. All right, so first things first, let's do the morale tests. Right. All right, morale test here on these chaps. Morale of 6, reduced by 1 because it's night time, and also reduced by 1 because they're being fired on from the flank by the artillery there. We'll roll that up, so they have got a morale of 4, and they've passed the morale test. They didn't exceed their morale number. Okay. Go down here, the morale on the artillery there. Let's see, it's night time. They're not being fired at in the flank, so their morale is 5 reduced to 4, and they are fine. Okay. Next morale test. This artillery here, same situation. They've got a morale of 4. We'll roll that up, and they are fine as well. Everybody's in good spirits, apparently. These chaps here, let's see, they're not being fired at in the flank. It's night time, so their morale of 6 will go down to 5. So they'll only fail on a 6, which they didn't. I got to check something there because I might have made a mistake there on both. No, on that one, I didn't take into consideration the fact that it was disordered, which is also a -1 on the morale. Let me check that. Yep, okay, they're fine. They rolled a 1, so they passed. Okay, so down here for the combat, we got these chaps here firing at close range, so they're firing on a, they're hitting on a 4, 5, or a 6, and there would be no saving throw. And they missed. Oh boy. Okay, skirmishers firing down here. They're hitting on a 6. See what they get. And there's nothing. Okay. And the French fire back. So the French are firing, as far as I can see, at the skirmishers. So the skirmishers will not, yes, come to think of it, not get a saving throw because they're right next to friends, so they're not dispersed enough. Okay. Right, so a 6 will be a kill. Will be an elimination. Oh. Well, yeah, so killed twice, as it were. Right, so no more Jaegers. Oh. Yeah, well, you could say, well, was that were they mishandled by the Russian commander? No, it was decided, no, we really want to try as hard as we can to do some damage to them, and it didn't work out, but there we go. So that's another hit on Parlin's core. Right. Okay, so old Parlin has got, what's he got? He's got one more, can take one more hit, and then his division, was he a division commander as well? What's going on? That's right, he is. He's a corps commander and he's a division commander, I think. So he can take one more hit, and then they're exhausted. Good Lord. They're awfully close. But there won't be any more hits on them this turn, no. Right, so over here, what do we got? We got these chaps. Yes, these are the dealers of death. Yes, here we go. Right, so we got 2 there, hitting on 4, 5, and 6, because they're close range. 2 dice because they're stationary, firing at the voltigeurs. Okay, and we've got a hit, and there is surely no saving throw from that, is there? No, they're not disordered or anything like that, so it's a genuine hit on the voltigeurs brigade of Pelay-Closeau. Let's see what happens. And as previously discussed, that was the last hit they could take, and the division is now exhausted. They've got 3 hits on them, and the only reason they're still on the battlefield is because we're going to adjudicate, because it's all simultaneous, we're going to, or at least you sort of resolve each bit, as it were, and then move on to the next. Right, so, what do we got? Yeah, so there's our hit. I've marked the hit. The division is now exhausted, and we are going to do their fire. That's right, their fire against that artillery unit there. Okay. And there will be the usual saving throw here because it's fire against unlimited artillery. Okay, and they've got one hit on the unlimited artillery. Let's see if the unlimited artillery can roll a saving roll. And they failed, so they have been hit. That's their first hit. Okay, let's sort that out. All right, so that's where they were. Pere Closeau, and not anymore. And we got our hit marked over here. Okay, and so yeah, where's let's see. Oh, I've got to get back to the roster and mark that one up. Yeah, so the heavy artillery there belongs to a exhausted division. So we're going to have to roll to see if the division suffers a morale collapse, because if it does, they would become disordered. It is significant. It's still significant at this stage, but you don't do that until the end of combat. Excuse me. So now we'll just have the regular shooting going on here. So from here, they're disordered, so there'll be a saving throw against this, and there's also a saving throw because it's against artillery. It's going to be difficult to make it stick. Right, well, there's a hit, so we'll roll to see if we can get a saving throw for artillery, and we got one. Okay, so there's no hit there, and then this fires back. They're not disordered, and they're heavy, so they don't get any saving throws at all. Right, that's correct. Yeah, and they've already got one hit, and there's another one. So surely, I think, maximum number of strength points an artillery unit is going to have in this battle is 2. So I'm pretty sure that's going to eliminate them. Let me check that out. So 5th Cavalry Corps. Right, let's have a look. Yeah, just a quick note there. When I did the shooting for this unit here, the die I picked up was a red die, which I'd put there, which is actually a die I put there to mark the fact that this unit had been hit by the unit that was here. Their actual fire dice was back here. Their fire die was back there. So anyway, but they did only fire once, and they did hit the enemy, and they did destroy the enemy. Right. So I think, let's see here. I don't want to forget this, so we should really do this at the end of the turn, but they were hit once. I'm going to roll to see if their morale collapses right now. Should really do it at the end of the turn, but there's nothing else going on involving them. So if they roll they rolled a 1. Okay, so that means morale collapse for Division 9. So I'll note that, and that means that they will, they will become disordered. Right, okay. Okay, and then finally, we've got the French here firing on the Russian artillery over here. Okay, so they are firing 3 dice. The artillery will get saving throws because it's unlimited artillery. And there are no hits there anyway. Okay, and then finally, there we go. The Russian artillery firing away. They're not stationary, so they get 1 die, but they do hit on a 4, 5, or 6. But they're also disordered. So there's a 5, which is a hit. But if the French can roll 4, 5, or 6, they will save, which they did. So the hit is not taken. Desultory fire. Maybe they're low on ammo or something like that, you know. Yes. So you can see, let's see. Right, that's all the combat done, right? So you can see that there's a lot of disorder spreading about. No, there's clearly nothing down here. But yes, how many? Let's see. Well, obviously there are casualties. So units that have become disordered, some of them have been destroyed. Not surprisingly, but we've got, what have we got? Disorder, 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 disorder. So that means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Russian units are disordered. Yep, and then we've got 1, 2 French and a routed unit as well. So in the big picture, in the center, what do we got? Well, no, let's just start down here. Things are looking pretty normal, the way they have done for quite a while down here. So this division, you know, as we can see, completely unscratched still. Completely, yeah, unscratched. That's a Jap. Their brothers in arms have been destroyed. Close range artillery can certainly do the trick. So they are now, as we can see from the dead soldier, as it were, on their base, they are now members of an exhausted division. There we go. There's Decouz, their commander, division commander. So that means they can no longer charge the enemy. They can still move forward and shoot at them. But there we go. And let's see what else. Any other new developments? I think that's pretty much it. Oh, you know, they're disordered. They weren't before, and really nothing much. Oh, nothing much happened down here except, of course, the loss of the Jaegers. The Jaegers were shot up by the Garde Voltigeurs. Right. So that means that we're now finally onto the final turn, the French turn 10, which is midnight. And the first thing we have to do is roll to see if that fire went out. Well, what the heck? Let's do it anyway. Let's do it then. I should say, let's get on with it. Let's do it. So there we are. There's Brienne le Chateau. It's on fire. It's made of wood. It's a town that's made of wood. So it caught fire. Yes, being fired on by artillery. If we roll a 6, the fire has gone out. And we didn't. So that means the fire is not going out for the rest of the battle, because this is the last turn. Okay, so no one's going back into that town. So we categorically can say no one is going to get any victory, not victory points, but as part of their victory conditions, no one is going to be able to claim that town because it's on fire. It is midnight, January 29th, 1814. The last turn, the French 10th turn. And then followed by the Allied 10th turn, remember. So anyway, what's happening? Well, we've laid out the combat dice and the morale dice. And basically, the French have done this. Okay, so they have decided that the overall plan, I suppose, has been on this particular turn, is that I've got a bit of a problem with sort of saying, oh, why don't we just have them charge, give it a go, see what can happen, because I want the record of this when it's all done. One can look at the number of divisions that were exhausted and all that sort of thing. And I don't want some silly action happening in the last turn just because it could be done. So I don't want them throwing themselves at them, because, of course, if they move up here, they'd have to stop and then they open fire. Each brigade, these 2 brigades, each one of them would have 2 dice. These chaps, on the other hand, are stationary, firing with battalion guns, so they would have 5 dice. They wouldn't be able to achieve anything. I mean, even if all their dice were hits, that would only score, well, I suppose, all right. If every single one of their dice is a hit, that would score 4 hits, and I suppose, for all I know, that might exhaust that division. But no, it's not happening. I don't want to go down all the different paths there, and I actually can't be bothered to look it up right now. I'm playing the game, right? So, what's going to happen then is, let's see, the plan was, however, that the French commander wanted to see if he could have the satisfaction of exhausting Parlin's division. So there's old Parlin down there. And so therefore, these guards here, the Garde Voltigeurs, have actually charged the artillery here. Okay. and that gives them a whopping, because they've got the battalion guns, sorry, the dedicated guns, that gives them 5 dice, but they've got a morale test because they're in melee. And then there's the artillery defending, they've got 2 dice, and they've got their morale test as well because they're in melee. These chaps here just sort of move back to facilitate all that. They've moved forward. They can't. They were outside of the visible distance of the enemy, so they move forward. Had to stop as usual, and they're going to fire at the cavalry there. Who knows? They might get a hit. Either one of those, if that one or that one takes 1 hit, it's only 1 more hit on Parlin's division, and it becomes exhausted. Okay. Of course, he's going to get his saving throws for being cavalry. Then over here, we have, let's see, who is that? The Brigade of Bast. And they are, of course, guards as well, but they have an exhausted division. Even so, they're not disordered. And they've actually become stationary, and they're going to be firing because they're stationary. They've got 5 dice now. They're going to be firing at the artillery here. They're going to be receiving fire from both these artillery battalions here, and they're their fire dice. And of course, they've got to take a morale test as well because they're within close range of the enemy. And in other news, this battalion here repositioned itself slightly, and I think these chaps also did that. Got a little further back out of the action because we didn't want the Russians having the satisfaction of destroying them, or even, come to think of it, exhausting that division, because that division there, Division Dufour, is not exhausted. Right. Okay. So that's what's going on. Right. So we're ready to roll them up. So where's the equipment? Let's get that. All right, let's do our morale test. So we've got the Parlin's Advanced Guard Horse Artillery here. We'll roll that up. The modifiers here, there's only one modifier, that is to say that it's nighttime, so his morale becomes 4. And off we go. And he's passed that because he didn't exceed it. Then we have the French. Oh shoot, I've got to check that. They've got their nighttime, of course. So that's a -1, and I think they get a -1 for the fact that they're meleeing the front of the artillery there. Pretty sure they are indeed, yes. So they've got -2, and that was borne in mind, so that makes it a very different proposition. They've got a, a 1/3 chance, a 5 or a 6, of failing this morale test. That would be exciting. And they did. Look at that. Ha! Ha! Right. So they failed the morale test. So they are now disordered. Let's see if I've got a disorder marker handy dandy to pop on them. There we go. Well, that one's... we'll use that one. Okay. So we'll just pop that on there so we can see they're disordered. Okay. Right. Well, that's disappointing for the guards. But anyway, moving on here. We got these stout fellows here. And so it's nighttime. And that, I think, let's see, do they... let's see. Just looking at the modifiers. No, I think we got it there. So they have got nighttime. Let's do nighttime. Consider nighttime, sorry. That means they have a morale of 5 and they roll 2, so they're fine. Sorry about the long drawn out phase there. Okay. So now we have this and they are disordered. Right. So that's true, isn't it? If they lose the melee, they would rout. Yes. Hang on a minute. Okay. So let's see what the artillery can do to the French there. Let's roll that up. They're hitting on a 4, 5, or a 6, so they've got 1 hit. There's 1 hit on the French. Okay, there's going to be no saving throws there. That's 1 hit for sure. So now the French are going to roll against the artillery. And there's going to be no saving throw here because this is melee. This is not... it's not shooting. That's right. Here we go. Going in. But that's right. Every one of these is going to get a saving throw because the enemy is disordered. And that one hit. Okay. All right. Well, that's about statistically, you know, what you might expect. And because they're only hitting on 6s, right? So let's roll and see if the Russians save. And they did. So, oh my goodness me, look at that. That means they lost the melee, which means that they are going to rout. Well, my dear gamers, look at that. There they are. So they were here, and they routed, full move, straight back down to there. Fortunately, due to exquisite planning, they didn't interfere with any troops behind them. No, actually, I say that. I mean, I really, or rather, the French commander had really not thought very seriously about there being a possibility of them routing, but they did fail their morale test, and they did get outscored in the in the melee. So well, there you are then. So yes, they've taken 2 hits now, one inflicted by the artillery and then one inflicted by the fact that they routed. So they're back there. Their division is certainly not exhausted. It's only taken 2 hits. There's the other half of the division there, of course. Whose division is that? That's Meunier. Okay. Yeah, so not a scratch on Parlin there. Parlin's forces. So let's see if these chaps can put a scratch, ding the paint, as it were, on Parlin's forces. Right, so they're shooting at them, so they are going to have saving throws because they can retire 600 yards for each saving throw. They don't get the skirmisher saving throw because they are close to friends. They're too close to their friends. Right, okay. And they got nothing. Right. What do we got? We got nothing. So that means that it's official. Parlin's... Well, unless Parlin does something in his turn now that causes him to lose one more casualty. If he's got... well, depends on what he wants to achieve. If he wants to go hell for leather and death or glory, then it's hard to imagine what he would do. But I suppose he could move artillery forward to fire at them or something like that. Yeah, I suppose he could do that, in consequence of which he could be fired on and he could lose a casualty, which would cause his division to be exhausted even at this late stage of the battle. So that is just possible. Depends on how gung-ho he is. Right, so there's that. Did that. Right, so now we're over here. So we've got them firing at the artillery there, and hopefully they can do something with 5 shots, and then the artillery firing back. So let's see what we got. And they are not disordered. That has to be borne in mind, okay? But the artillery will get saving throws because they are artillery. Unlimbered artillery. Okay, so here we go. Going in with the French shooting at this unit here. Okay. Ooh. Well, that's interesting. That's 3 hits. Surely something's going to come from that. All right. So those are the 3 hits. So now the Russians can roll their 3 saving, looking for 4, 5, and 6s. Oh my God! Can you believe that? They saved every one. Oh my gosh! Long faces on the guard there. I mean that was done correctly. That's it. We got 3 hits and they got 3 saves. Oh my goodness me. Right. Boy, it's not going the guard's way this hour at midnight. Okay, so now we got this one shot coming in from here, hitting on a 4, 5, or 6, of course, at the guards. And, okay, nothing there. And then finally, last combat from the artillery, which is disordered, so there'll be a saving throw after this. if it's a hit, which it is a hit. So roll for a save. The guards are rolling for a save, and they miss it. So that's another hit on Bast. And that one hit on Bast there means that, because everything else is done now, we can roll to see if his exhausted division, the exhausted division to which he belongs, has had a morale collapse. And that will happen if I roll a 1. Which did not happen. Okay, no morale collapse. Okay. Yeah, so that means that's it for the French commander. The French commander can now... let's see, has he got any decisions to make now? Does he actually have any decisions? I would say the French commander... I don't know. Not sort of trying to labour the point here, but sort of now it's the Russian commander. So I was wondering if the French commander could sort of, go to the pub. Yes, of course, it's only me. So, yeah, so we'll do the Russian commander. But of course, you see, when the Russian commander, he has, there would be actions for the French commander to do in the sense of he's going to have to roll his dice. Okay, if there are dice, the Russian commander could just back everyone away, and then there would be no one for the French to shoot at. As a matter of fact, of course, this gun here, if you're wondering, why didn't that gun there get involved in something? It's not horse artillery, so on that last turn, it could have limbered up and moved, but it couldn't have unlimbered, so it couldn't fire at anything. Let's see. So... Yes. So yeah, as far as what the Russian commander does now, that's right, I was thinking about French artillery. So there's no movement there, obviously. So there's no French artillery firing at the enemy at close range, unless the Russians put themselves in close range. And in situations like this here, of course, all they've got to do is move back, and that would mean they can't be shot at. And in this situation here, no, they can continue to fire at the artillery there. So the artillery here might, if they wanted to absolutely preserve themselves, they could just sort of move back slightly, and then the French wouldn't be able to do them any more damage. On the other hand, they might want to stay in position or even move forward to do more substantial damage to the French. That's up to them. The one thing about the Russians in this battle, the fact that they've had 6 battalions of artillery to the French's 4 has been a big factor. Yes, it's only 2 more, but it's 50% more as well. And I think also it was the case that the French didn't have any, I don't think they had any heavy guns. And the Russians have got, what have they got? Have the Russians actually lost any artillery? They haven't. No, the Russians haven't lost any artillery. I can see from here that the Russians have got, I believe, 2 heavy battalions. Yeah, the way I base them is I use 3 figures. So there's a heavy there, and there's a heavy there. Right. Yeah, so yes, chatter. Off we go now to the final turn of the entire game, which is to say the Allied 10th turn. And here we are. It's the Russian 10th turn. It's midnight. Last turn of the game. And so what have the Russians done? Well, with nothing to lose, they've decided to bring both these artillery units. This one came from here. This one came from over here. And pop down here, turn and face them. Pop down here, turn. The magic of horse artillery. You can do all this. Highly maneuverable and all that sort of thing. Anyway, so they both got one dice hitting on a 4, 5, or 6, of course, and the magic of it is that the French can't fire back because the French are facing that way. So they've also got flank shots, which will help the possibility of driving them into disorder. Wouldn't that be something? Anyway, let's see, what else have we got? Things remained the same up here, so they're going to have a shot at these chaps again. These chaps move forward so that they could fire at them. That does mean that now they can get fired on by them, and they will, with the 5 fire dice, which is quite a lot going at them. And they are not disordered, so these are very plucky chaps moving forward like that. But the idea, what we're trying to do is we are trying to nail that unit there. And they have to take a morale test first, of course, because of the proximity of the enemy there, the enemy guns. And that is it. That's the only movement that was done. Everything else was sort of like, no, we're pretty much going to leave everyone where they are because we don't want to move forward forces that could be shot at and lead to a division which is not already exhausted becoming exhausted. So everything else was pretty much left where it was. Okay. All right, so let's move on. Let's do the morale test first then. So we got the test going in here on Lacoste's brigade. And they are, of course, guards. But it is, of course, nighttime. And they are being fired at in the flank. So they lose 2 for that. So the morale of 6 goes down to 4. Let's see what happens. And they have passed it. All right, so now we do the guards here, which are also being fired at in the flank, and it's nighttime, so they've got a morale of 4, and let's do them. And they've passed that. Okay, everybody passed their morale test. So now we're doing the shooting. So we've got the Parlin's advanced guard, horse artillery here, firing at the guard, and they've scored a hit from which there will be no saving throw. Okay, and then we've got the core artillery belonging to, I believe that belongs to, I believe it belongs to Vasilichikov. Okay, here we go. There's a hit on that one as well. So 2 hits, very respectable. 2 hits on those chaps. On Lacoste. Okay. And I can tell you now that means that the division to which they belong, which is the 1st Division, yeah, same as them. I didn't mark the casualties. Let me just do that. Okay. There we go. Right. Here are our casualties. As you can imagine, you got 2 there, 2 there, so a total of 4 casualties for the division. 1 more, and that would have been exhaustion, but it didn't happen, so there we go. Right, heavily blooded, but not exhausted. So now we have these chaps here. This should be interesting. Let's have them firing. Again, they're not exhausted. They're firing at the infantry there. So they've got 5 dice hitting on 6s. Let's see what they can come up with. Look at that. Nothing. Okay. Well, statistically, that's fair enough. You'd have to roll 6 dice to expect to get a 6. You know, statistically. As it were. Right. So from here, we got 4, 5, or a 6 going in there. We got 4, 5, or a 6 going in there. So these are actually... We can roll them together, actually. They both hit on a 4, 5, or a 6. And, there are 2 of them. And, but they're both disordered. Okay. So, let's see if they're saved. One of them is saved. So, that's another hit on poor old Bast. So, let's put a hit on him there. Here we go. And then finally... Coming in from here, these are, of course, disordered. So you're going to have to roll saving throws. All right, here we go. This is the last volley of the battle. Russians here, firing at Bast. And no 6s there. Okay, so we've had 1 hit on Bast. And, of course, he belongs to the 2nd Division of the Garde Voltigeurs. So that's Decouze. They're already exhausted, as we know. So, but they could have a morale collapse. They took 1 hit. I suppose let's mark the... there we go. And go on, let's roll it up. If they roll a 1, then they will have a morale collapse. No, quite the reverse. They rolled a 6. Right, pause. Right, so this is the scene. Oh, let's get rid of that. Okay, don't need that. Cue. This is the scene. This is the scene before us. So, just to catch up there quickly with the fate of the Garde Voltigeuse. They, of course. So that's the what is that? The First Division. They're routed with 2 casualties. And there's the First Division. They've taken 2 casualties. The First Division could take, which is Meunier, could take 1 more casualty and then be exhausted. So, and then the other division, of course, which belonged to Decouz, has been completely destroyed. Yes. So, of course, for a long time during the battle, as Ney's forces were marching with his old Ney, you see, Ney, yes, I painted him, yes, one of the very few figures, and his companion there, very few figures on the tabletop that I actually painted myself. Anyway, yes, for the longest time, of course, Ney's forces were slowly, desperately trying to move forward, difficult at night time, snail's pace. And for the longest time, we kept saying, look at that, not a scratch on them, absolutely mint condition. And now they've got 1 strength point left, so they've been almost completely eliminated. Well, as a fighting force, I suppose you could argue they're still there technically, but yes. So that means that in the 10th turn, certainly in the 10th turn there for the French and the Russians, no division became exhausted, as it were. So what I'm going to do now is go through the paperwork, take a look at what condition everyone's in, how many divisions have been exhausted and morale collapse, all this sort of thing. And also just sort of generally look at the losses. Well, let's see, we can say, I'll tidy up my sort of graveyard over here, so where all the losses are, which you can't see at the moment. So that we can calculate it, but I can tell you right off the bat, just looking at it quickly, what have we got? The French, they've lost 4 cavalry brigades, 3 infantry brigades, and 2 artillery battalions. And the Russians, by contrast, of course, they've got forces that are divvied up in different ways. So if I count 2 light cavalry bases as sort of a brigade of cavalry, as it were, then we've got over there, let's see, 1, 2, 3, basically 3.5 brigades of cavalry and 2 brigades of infantry. So that means that the Russian losses are substantially lower than the French. Right, okay. Right, and in terms of the forces that are still on the field, okay, they're all in mint condition there, as are they. They've taken 1 hit, so basically all sort of shiny and new up there. These poor chaps, they've lost the will to fight. They're just standing around, getting in the way of the enemy. And then, of course, the Russians have been, well, heavily pounded. We can see by all this disorder and all that sort of thing all over the place. But no, well, at least when you're fighting at night, having chaps like these skirmishing cavalry around is jolly handy. Jolly handy. And yes, it's interesting, of course, it wasn't intentional, but because what I did was I cast about on the, when was that? It's like 4 years ago. When I asked around on the web. The reason I'm playing Brienne is because I'd picked up a load of Russians from hither and thither and rebased them for Volley and Bayonet, bought other bits and pieces to flesh out the forces, and I wanted to play a battle with Russians that was about this size, not some monstrous thing that was, required a table that was 10 feet long and, 1,000 figures or something like that. So Brienne was suggested. I apologise, I can't remember. It may have been Keith McNally who suggested it from his site. Maybe it was just on Keith's site. I'm pretty sure it's still there now as a scenario. And so that's what got me into this. Where the heck was I going with this? I'll have to think about that. And now I remember the point I was going to make. The curious thing is, of course, the last big battle I did before this, as you can see from the channel, was 20mm Volley and Bayonet 4 Bras. And the curious thing is that in both battles, maneuver is extremely restricted, because in 4 Bras, you've basically got a visibility distance of 400 yards, because there was so much, the standing crops were so tall that everybody's sort of like, waltzing around in all this rye barley or whatever it was. So you had the same sort of thing you had here, where in this battle you could move up to 200 yards and then stop, and then on the next turn you could charge. 4 Bras, you could move up to 400 yards and then stop, and then on the next turn you could charge. Well, I suppose if you were... Well, yeah, you could, right, with the infantry or cavalry, right. And so I'm looking forward to playing a game where there's no such restriction. It's played during the daytime, there are no standing crops, and you can just go charging about all over the place. Yes, long-range artillery too. That sounds exciting. Good Lord. So I definitely think I'm going to sort of focus on that for the next battle. I don't know what the next battle is going to be. But anyway, let's get to the battle summary first before we start thinking about things off in the far distant future. All right, so in a nutshell, there are the casualties, with the French on the left and the Allies on the right. The French have lost 3 infantry brigades. They've also got 2 routed infantry brigades still on the battlefield. 4 cavalry brigades lost, 2 artillery battalions. The Russians, on the other hand, have lost 2 infantry brigades, what I'm calling, because of the bases involved, what I'm calling 3.5 brigades of cavalry, and 1 infantry skirmisher. So the French losses are significantly higher than the Russian losses. All right, so it's the next day. I mean, in reality, it's the next day. But and I suppose it would be the next day as well, come to think of it, at Brienne, because it was midnight when the battle ended. So we've now presumably moved into the 30th of January, 1814. And, well, there we are then. So what did I think of the whole experience? Well, it was a very interesting battle, I will say. The nighttime factor, of course, was a huge factor in the way things played out, because you can't just go charging around everywhere. You've got to sort of move here, move hither and thither, and then when you encounter the enemy, you have to stop, take stock of your situation, let them have a shot at you before you can do anything. Well, you can shoot at them, and then in their turn, they can have another shot at you. And then when it's your turn again, you can charge them. Yes, very different sort of an affair. But as I say, somewhat similar to the 4 Bras battle that I played, where you had to stop at 400 yards rather than... I can't remember the details. The visibility was 400 yards anyway. And in this, the visibility was 200 yards. Right. So you get the idea. In terms of how the battle played out, okay, obviously different people could play it using different tactics, different deployments, and so forth and so on. It was a bit of a shock at the beginning when the French cavalry, of course, were formed up here, and off they went. They thought they'd drive off, just hit heavy down at the Allies down this way, and in they went. And they got torn to shreds. Yes, lost 4 brigades out of 5. Left these chaps, plucky Polish lancers, who seemed to have sort of lost their pluck. They didn't go home, but they weren't prepared to do anything of any great consequence for the rest of the battle. So yes, big loss there. And then you had to sort of All quiet on the Western Front up here. That is, I suppose that was literally the West, wasn't it? Yes, because that's the North. Yes, interesting. Yes. And then down here, of course, you've got Ney showing up with his 4 brigades of crack troops, and they sort of lined up and they did their manoeuvres and everything and got ready to go in, and then they did go in, but unfortunately, it being nighttime, the skirmishing cavalry were able to seriously convenience their manoeuvres, and then when they did finally make some progress forward, they were, I think, memory seems to tell me that it was largely the artillery. Of course, it would have been, wouldn't it? Because there's never been any infantry over here, really, and the infantry over there has got itself disordered. Some of those units have been disordered for quite some time. So basically, it's just been sort of trying to push forward and being blasted to pieces by artillery. Seems to me. You can rewind the video and form your own conclusions. I mean, why not? And then, I mean, good Lord, 2 routed units. I mean, that guard unit that routed down there, that was a bit of a surprise. Exciting, yes. And then what else did we have? Well, we had the building catching fire as well. That was added a bit of spice to the situation. The fire that refused to go out. I mean, we only gave it one opportunity to go out, but go out it did not. And then, what else? And then down there, I suppose, as I say, it was all quiet on the Western Front. They just sort of lined themselves up against one another, and neither one of them could be persuaded to attack, really, because it would have been difficult to succeed. Yes. Let's see what else. Yes. I think that's about it. So I mean, all things considered, I mean, a good time was had by all. I mean, both myself and me, and indeed I. Let's see. Now, moving on from here. What's up next? Well, when I played Quatre Bras, which is as I keep saying, was the last game I played before this one, and that was played 4 years ago, as memory serves. So then there was a long gap before we got to the next V&B game. In the interim, I've played a huge number of board games, war board games, Avalon Hill, SPI, GMT, various other titans of the war board game scene. Yes, jolly good stuff. But I have to say, it's really good getting some miniatures on the table again, and I do love my 20mm Napoleonics. And as I say, for the Russians here, they were virgin soldiers when they hit the table, because I'd collected them, bits and bobs, picking up from Wargame Convention, bring and buy section, and then eBay and that sort of thing. So I'd gathered them together over a period of 20 years, and finally decided, no, I'm going to base them up, and I'm going to get the bases ready for V&B, and I'm going to get them in action. And from the time I started basing them up, it only then took 4 years to get them onto the table. I mean, that's, you can obviously tell I'm a man of action. And but now that they're all based up and everything, of course, one thing I thought was I could play this battle again. Obviously, I could just set it up again and play it again. Very limited overhead there, But do I want to do that? I don't know if I want to do that. Then the other one was, I did look at, there was the, what was it? The Battle of, can't remember the name of it now. There's a place, he said, looking for a good camera shot. There's a place just down the road there, isn't there? I can't remember what it's called, but there's a V&B scenario for that right there on Keith McNally's site for a battle that took place just a few days after this. The only thing is, it does have rather a different order of battle, if I remember correctly. I think there are rather a large number of Prussians involved, perhaps. And apologise for this. Bit shoddy, not looking this up first, but this is just a sort of stream of consciousness. And Prussians have I not. No, I am gathering a certain modest Prussian host, so that if Prussians are required, I can sort of produce some, but I don't have any of them based up for V&B yet or anything. So yes, so a battle that involved a large number of Prussians or a large number of Austrians would be beyond me. I've got a large number of French, Russians, and British right now. So with a smattering, a very small quantity of Dutch Belgians. Yeah, so if you can think of a really interesting battle that involves lots of Russians and British, be sure and let me know. I don't think we're going to get very far with that one, but yes. No, actually, no. There was one battle. That's right. Yes, I was going to mention that, wasn't it? I'm looking at what's it called, Eylau, and I'm looking at. So there's the scenario there. I think it's in the what is it? Road to Glory book. This Eylau, and happily, very conveniently for that, they've provided us with a smaller option, because the full option for Eylau has got, for example, the Russians have 39 brigades of infantry. And I've got a pretty good Russian host, but I don't think I've got 39 brigades, no. And you'd probably need a fairly big table there, bigger than the one I have here. So there's the Southern Battle option, and that has only 22 brigades of Russian infantry. And that one I think I can do. So I think I might be moving on to doing that one next. But I am going to check. I'm certainly no expert on all these battles. And one of the things I'm going to check, because if you can believe it, when I got into the whole Brienne thing, I accumulated the armies, I based them up, I did all that stuff. And I actually hadn't noticed about the fact that most of this battle took place at night. So having done all the work, I thought, well, we're going to play it anyway. And it was an interesting battle. But at the end of the day, I think I'd prefer to play battles that take place during the daytime, charge about, bold maneuvers, that sort of thing. Huge outflanking maneuvers covering huge tracts of land. Yes. So I think I might be doing that one next, actually. And I think if I remember correctly, there was a smattering of Prussians involved in that, but I think I've already got enough Prussians to do that. So mainly loads of Russians and, of course, loads of French. Yes, so I hope you've enjoyed it. And moving on now to the next battle, wherever that takes us. And as usual, I say, here's to it.